Well, it's to our top story. Nearly 10,000 British tourists are stranded on the Greek island of Rhodes. The blaze there is still out of control.
Repatriation flights are underway with thousands of people already brought home, with more trips scheduled for today.
The Foreign Office has so far not advised against going to Rhodes. The Prime Minister says his priority is the safety of British people and urges them to get in touch with their tour operators before they go. And we've got pictures, if you're listening now, we've got pictures of there's thick pools of black smoke hanging over the island, but you can see small planes flying in. These look like tourist planes coming in.
Well, it's either that or maybe they're dumping water or something. It could be that. I mean, it looks terrifying there. Yeah,
but the foreigners' advice still is they've not advised people not to go, so EasyJet and British Airways are still flying people in.
But EasyJet, there was an announcement this morning that EasyJet pilots, they're shocking tourists by telling them not to fly to the island.
Yeah.
That's one of the headlines today.
And, of course, we talked to Mark White, who's our Home and Security Editor, and he says 80 to 85% of the island, it's a very large island, is completely unaffected. But, of course, you don't know which way the wind is going to blow.
And the trouble is there are a lot of mixed messages, Andrew. People don't know the truth of what's happening.
Yeah, and there's, again, the plane we can see flying in, I think it pretty much looks like it's a plane dropping water.
Yeah, look there it goes. Look at that.
And, of course, that's one of the most effective ways to try and bring these sort of fires.
But is it, when it's across miles, how does that little plop of water make a difference?
They managed it in one part of the island yesterday.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. And we've got to hope that they are going to get it under control. But to say the Greek Prime Minister seems to have a crystal ball, good luck to him, by saying it's 3 more days of difficulties. We'll go to talk now to the travel agent, Miles Morgan, who joins us from Athens in Greece, which is just, well, you're not very too many islands away from Rhodes, Miles, are you? Good morning. If you were advising your clients, would you tell them to get on a plane and go to Rhodes on holiday or to Corfu, Miles?
Well, sadly, the position for a lot of our guests is they can't travel this week. The majority of holiday companies, whilst they're still flying planes out to the island, they're not actually taking any passengers. They're actually just flying the planes out so they can bring people back, either from their standard 14-night holiday or actually people that want to fly back early. So, the situation for this week is fairly clear. As for next week, I think time will tell. As you mentioned just now, there is some confidence on the island. And, the local information I'm getting from people that are actually staying out there is that things really are nowhere near as bad as the pictures, obviously, people can see on their screens now, with a number of people I know returning to their hotels on the East Coast that were actually evacuated just a couple of days ago.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because we were just saying, Maz, that there's lots of mixed messages, and yes, we're all showing these terrible pictures. But it's interesting that people like you on the ground are telling us it's not as bad. And so you would advise people to still go?
No, they can't travel this week. But I think for anybody that's going to go next week potentially to Rhodes, I would be saying to them, sit tight for the moment. I think we're optimistic that things will be fine for next week. As you rightly say, winds can change direction and things can change. The weather forecast is also, I think, slightly on our side. So I think the temperatures are going to reduce heading into this weekend. And obviously that will help the firefighters as well. But as you said earlier, if you're in London and you had your holiday cancelled to Brighton because of a fire in London, you'd probably scratch your head a little bit and question what the reason was for that.
And some people watching and listening, Miles, will think, well, look, I hear it might be getting better, but I'm still a bit nervous, so I really don't think I do want to fly out on Sunday to Rhodes. If they withdraw and there's no Foreign Office advice not to go, do they then lose their money, Miles?
That's the way it stands with the majority of holiday companies. I think from what I've seen so far, a lot of the holiday companies are taking a reasonably flexible approach. So by the letter of the law, you're absolutely right. But I think at the end of the day, this is people's holidays. Nobody wants to send somebody somewhere they absolutely don't want to go, that they're concerned about and they think is dangerous. But equally, the Foreign Office advice is there to advise the holiday companies. And equally, they have people on the ground all over those islands. And so they know potentially the north is completely unaffected, the east coast maybe slightly. They're the people on the ground, and actually they're the people we put our trust in because they absolutely know what's going on. They also know it's not in their interest to send people to somewhere that could potentially be dangerous. Hence the reason why this week nobody's going out.
So, Miles, if people do want to go and they do decide to go, what's the best way for them to get information to find out what it's like where they are? Because a lot of people are saying they can't get in touch with the tour companies.
I think if you booked a package holiday, then obviously pop down and see your travel agent if you're lucky enough to have booked through a travel agent, or contact your holiday company. The advice I would give them is the holiday companies are it's not in their interest to send people to somewhere that is totally unsuitable. Yeah. And if you look at what's gone on, particularly on Rhodes, it is the East Coast that's been particularly affected. But as I mentioned, friends of mine have actually returned yesterday to their holiday on the East Coast, and they could see some plumes of clouds and smoke in the distance. But actually, their hotel was absolutely fine, and they're enjoying their holiday today and having a wonderful time.
You're in Athens, Miles, one of my favourite cities, despite the traffic. Is there much consternation there because of the damage this may do to the Greek tourist industry? Because we know it's hugely important to the Greek economy. What is it, 20-25% of GDP or something is tourism?
No, it's actually relatively quiet, the news for this story. It's interesting seeing, obviously I see the headlines in the UK papers, but actually the news over here, it's relatively low key, because I think what you need to remember is there are fires on the islands almost every single year without fail. This particular one is a particularly significant one, but it is an incident that happens very, very regularly. They're very used to handling this sort of situation. It is a severe one, let's be honest. We've seen that from the pictures, but I have every confidence that they will get on top of it, because that's what they do in these islands.
They do. That's Miles Morgan. Thanks for joining us from Athens. Of course, you shouldn't forget that Rhodes is the 4th or 3rd biggest island too. It's 850 miles. Wow. It's a lot of island, isn't it?
It is. It's interesting what he's saying there, that the people there, the Greek people, aren't that worried about it. Maybe it's because it happens every single year.
Yeah. And we know, they've said already, that in Corfu it was caused by arson.
Yeah, I
Before
know.
people rush to say it's all climate change and global warming.
We tried to say that yesterday to someone who was talking to us about climate change, and they weren't having it.
No, they weren't. No. They weren't.